Hello and welcome to my YouTube channel and welcome to Bramble Fox Challenge, which is a new monthly challenge on the Bramble Fox Friends Facebook group. And each month we set a new challenge to inspire our group members. So the first challenge for the month of August is a tic-tac-toe, and I chose stamping, stitching and ribbon or lace from the tic-tac-toe board. And here I'm just making a start with the stamping. So I'm not a great stamper. I haven't got many stamps, and the stamp I had in mind for this layout I have used many times. So I just wanted to try something new with it. So to start with, I'm masking some areas of the background cardstock off, and I'm doing this by tearing strips of paper in a random fashion, and I'm just lightly tacking it onto the background, creating horizontal lines. So the idea is that this layout is going to have a horizontal orientation, and by masking horizontal lines off is going to reinforce that. And also by tearing the strips of paper, it gives a bit of a natural or random effect. So while I'm doing the stamping, let me tell you a little bit about this new challenge. So each month the challenge team will set a new challenge, and people who participate can upload their entry onto the Bramble Fox Friends Facebook group, and one lucky winner will be selected randomly each month, who will win a £15 voucher to be spent at the Bramble Fox online store. And this month's challenge is tic-tac-toe. So the idea is that on your layout you include 3 items from the board which are in a line, and of course you also have to include a Bramble Fox product. Okay, so back to my layout. I'm just finishing the stamping and then carefully taking the paper strips off the cardstock. And I quite like the end results, although it does look a bit messy. There's a big gaping hole in the middle, and also the stamping goes off the page at the top and the bottom. But I'm not overly concerned about this. I do have an idea of how my layout will look in the end, and I know that I will be covering these areas off. And then I just make a start with layering the paper pieces. And for this, I chose papers that would tie my acrylic pieces to the photo. So the photo was taken in nature, so it does have that sort of vibe, and the colours are quite natural colours as well. And the acrylic pieces I'm using are soft pastels, and although they're not clashing with the photo, it was important for me to choose paper pieces that bring the two together. So I chose a soft yellow because one of the acrylic pieces is yellow. The green paper with the fern pattern has got a slightly bluish tinge to it, so that was quite a good match for the blue acrylic pieces, so I chose that one over the paper with the map pattern. And the pinkish coral paper was quite a good match to the pinks and reds on the photo, as well as the pink acrylic arrow. So I'm just layering up my paper pieces. I'm putting them at the top and the bottom of the cardstock just to frame the layout and to ground it. And I'm adding my photo to the middle. And again, I'm just layering it onto patterned paper. I'm choosing small patterns and quite neutral colours, just so it doesn't take too much attention away from the photo. And I'm distressing the edges. So I'm just doing some layering and distressing and more layering and more distressing. I'm distressing by tearing the paper, but I don't always like the effect. I don't like the massive white edges that this can create. So if I find it's too much, I'm just trimming some of it away with a pair of scissors, and then I'm using a distressing tool to create the desired effect. So coming up in just a few seconds, I am sorry to say that I cut out a chunk of the process video. This was just, again, layering and distressing the little paper cluster in the middle. So it was quite self-explanatory and quite boring, so I just cut it out. So then I make a start on the embellishing. First, I'm just making sure I know exactly where the acrylic pieces will be going. Because this will determine where the rest of the embellishments will be placed. So I'm just playing around with the acrylic pieces, and then once I'm happy with their placement, I then start placing the jute ribbon to the layout. But before that, I realized that I want a little bit more pink. So I'm adding some more of that corally pinky paper that I used to frame my photo with, and I'm just adding these strips to the top and bottom paper cluster just to create a bit of cohesion between the three paper clusters. And then I start adding the jute ribbon. So I did cut the jute ribbon in half, and I quite like the effect it creates. It's again, it's a bit of a distressed look, and also it ties the photo and the layout to the theme, which was sort of nature walks, and it's quite a natural material. So it seemed like a good choice to include on this layout. And I'm planning to add one ribbon piece to each paper cluster, but I'm just primarily concerned about the one in the middle because that will be tucked under the paper pieces, whereas the ones at the top and bottom will be going over. So I'm just finding the exact positioning for the paper cluster so I know where to place the ribbon, and I'm just lightly tacking it to the cardstock background. And then I use my sewing machine to machine stitch the ribbon pieces to the layout. So I did this bit off camera, and I used a dark brown thread and quite a messy stitching, which just adds that little bit extra to the whole distressed layout. And finally, it's time to add those beautiful acrylic pieces, and I use a super strong glue or super glue usually to add acrylic pieces to my layout. So this might not be agreeable with some people, but I just find this the best way of adding the acrylic pieces to ensure that they will stick to the layout. And I'm not overly concerned about what will happen to my layouts in 20, 30, 50 years time. I'm more concerned about them not falling apart in the meantime, really. So that is my rationale for my glue choice. So here I'm just making a start on the rest of the embellishments, and for this I'm using stickers and embellishment pieces from the Simple Stories Simple Vintage Cottage Fields collection, and also from the Simple Vintage Great Escape collection. The former one is more of pastel tones and the latter is more of earth tones, so I'm just creating a bit of a mix and match effect here. And I'm keeping these embellishment clusters quite light and only adding a few bits and pieces. I don't want to overcrowd the layout. There's already plenty going on, really. And then just adding some little wood grain hearts. And I created 3 small embellishment clusters, which is something I like to do on layouts. But rather than creating a triangle around my photos with the embellishment clusters, I placed them around the acrylic pieces, just reinforcing the whole sort of horizontal and across the page orientation. And I think that is my completed layout. Thank you for visiting my YouTube channel, and thank you for watching my process video. And don't forget to enter the challenge at the Bramble Fox Friends Facebook group. Thanks for visiting. Bye now.